Talking about my feelings is not something I normally do. Have you ever stopped to think about why you have feelings for your favorite watches? Surely you can testify to the butterflies, the weakness in the knees, or even the primal urges you get when images of your Grail watch appear. Because this channel strives to be a little, if not a lot, different, instead of reviewing a timepiece in which you may or may not be interested in, I want to address what makes us desire our watches in the first place. But before we get too deep into this, however, I do want to remind you that I'm trying to give away a watch. At the end of my last video, I showed a photo of the case back of the watch I'm giving away. And all I'm asking is that you guess what brand of watch it is. If you get it correct, you'll be entered into the random drawing, and it will be fair. Now, if you don't want to enter, but you think you know what kind of watch it is, that's okay. Feel free to guess. Leave it in the comment section. You might even help the next guy who does want to win it. But I will say, this is not a new watch. It's a vintage one. It might not be your cup of tea. Or on the other hand, it might be the piece you've always wanted. Just understand that. In order to enter again, just guess what kind it is and write it in the comment section, and that will enter you. Just in case today's video causes you to wonder, I'm a red-blooded male with average levels of a naturally occurring testosterone, so talking about my feelings is not something I normally do. It's usually only when my wife makes a big deal out of it, or when I'm sick and I have to prove I need people to wait on me. But it was just recently that I was discussing watches with Kitty, my friend in China. And she asked the most profound question. Do you think the perfect watch is a feeling? Oh my goodness, I was literally shaken to the core. No joke. As soon as I read that, it was like my crown was pushed and all the gears in my brain started turning. And immediately, just made me dizzy with the implications. Can we be honest? How many times have you defended your love or your addiction to watches by saying, I admire the craftsmanship that goes into the design and manufacture of each piece? When in reality, every time you see a blue dial or a ceramic bezel, your throat tightens up and your hands begin to sweat. Seriously, most of us who love watches are simply drawn to them because of how they look, despite their horological significance. And why not? How useful is a watch that can't be seen, right? And if it's going to be seen, like this one can be seen, shouldn't it be something that you enjoy looking at? By the way, this is a Vostok Kommandersky automatic. But is it just the looks? Is it just a beautiful dial, a luxuriously finished case, or a mesmerizing collection of complications? You and I are not the same. We see the world through different eyes, through different lenses, in different shades of light, from different angles. We may be looking at the very same thing, a watch. But what elicits no response from you may be the perfect watch for me. One that stirs feelings linked to deep-seated emotions, hinging on forgotten events, unrecognized trauma, unrealized dreams, or unfulfilled longings. Believe me, I'm no expert in psychotherapy. I'm not Dr. Phil, just Dr. Baker. But the question my friend Kitty asked encouraged me to do a shallow dive into the world of emotional psychology, the study of feelings and emotions. What I found shed a lot of light on the idea of the perfect watch. One source on the subject said the following: emotions and feelings are very similar. In fact, The definition of feeling is to have an emotion. The only difference is that emotions tend to refer to that which isn't tangible or easily seen, while feelings are sometimes observable. It went on to say, feelings are subjective, self-contained, phenomenal experiences. According to the American Psychiatric Association Dictionary, a feeling is a self-contained phenomenal experience, and feelings are subjective, evaluative, that's a hard word, and independent of the sensations, thoughts, or images evoking them. Let's unpack that last quote. First, feelings are subjective, which means that you and I may react differently to the same thing. But secondly, notice that feelings are evaluative and independent of the sensations, thoughts, or images evoking them. In other words, how we might value something, particularly a watch, how we feel about it, is independent of the watch itself. According to the APA, emotion is defined as a complex reaction pattern involving experiential behavior and physiological elements. Emotions are how individuals deal with matters or situations they find personally significant. And they said feelings arise from an emotional experience. So, the perfect watch, is it something we feel? Is it something that's different for each of us and impossible to determine outside of one's unique, complex, emotional experiences? I want you to take a look at something I found online as I was going down this rabbit hole. At first, it may seem a little kooky, and it may appear to have nothing to do with watches, but just work with me on this a little bit. For our purposes, take a look at the orange segments. If you look closely, you'll see that this circle of feelings is divided down the middle into two sections. On the right side are feelings we have when our needs are met. The left side has the opposite in corresponding colors. Notice the feelings associated with being proud or self-confident, the orange section on the right. Compare it with the ashamed segment, also in orange. When your needs are met, when you get that new watch, how do you typically feel when you first put it on and wear it? Does it make you feel more self-confident, encouraged, empowered? Does it boost your self-esteem? Is there something about having and wearing that watch that takes away the fear of being ashamed or humiliated? Stop and ask yourself this question. Why can't a Timex Weekender be my perfect watch? Would your self-esteem be negatively affected by wearing a Casio Duro or a Citizen EcoDrive, a cheap one? If the perfect watch is not an emotion, then why couldn't those three watches or even a G-Shock take place of multi-$1,000 watches that cost more to own and aren't even as accurate? There are genuine feelings of desire, maybe even lust, when I look at a Tudor Black Bay 41 or even my San Martin Black Bay homage. There's even something about my inexpensive Addies dive that woos me with its curvy shape and lugs and warm color combinations. Feelings are rooted in emotions, both of which are independent of the corresponding stimuli, in other words, the watches we love. Is it possible then that what really makes a watch a perfect watch can only be described as what feels best? Or, more troubling, could it be that what we constantly seek in the perfect Grail watch is nothing more than the fulfillment of an emotional need for which we can't even recognize the cause, or worse, admit it when we do know? Last night I shared these thoughts with my wife, the one who normally falls asleep anytime I proofread something. But this time she didn't fall asleep. Her eyes were very open when I concluded. I asked, "So what did you think?" With a slightly irritated look, she replied, "It sounds like you're having an affair." Now, that stunned me. But on the other hand, I should have anticipated it, because what else are we doing when we seek to find satisfaction for emotional needs outside of actual relationships? And, you and I may really, really like watches, but let's be careful with collecting. No hobby of any kind should become a mistress. Don't forget, try to guess what kind of watch I'm giving away, just the brand, and you share that in the comments to be entered into the next drawing. That will happen next week. Lastly, thank you for watching, and if you found value of any kind in this video, please leave a comment, like it, share it, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, be safe, be well, and remember, watches are replaceable, but time is not.